Welcome to the Guide to Thrifting, the Lebanon, Annville, and Palmyra edition. I've got a video of 8 different thrift stores all on one route, Route 422, along a 17-mile stretch that you can theoretically cover in under 35 minutes, unless, of course, you stop and actually do some thrifting, which is the point. All of the addresses and websites are in the description below, and I also have some videos of other thrifting opportunities in Berks and Ephrata, Lancaster, and other areas, so check those out. So my first stop was the Jubilee thrift store, which is in Myerstown. Had some stuff outside. The weather was kind of getting nicer. A decent, kind of more of a moderate-sized store, but like a lot of the Jubilee stores, they is pretty well organized, and they have the stuff in there is nicer. You're not going to find stuff that's all broken up or ripped apart or things like that. So typical stuff in terms of some clothes, some housewares. They do have books and things like that. And actually a decent kind of selection of books. You'll see here in a minute that they actually have a section devoted to vintage books, and they will, again, they're smart. They'll charge you a little bit extra. I did find a couple of sort of interesting things to look at. There was some Popular Mechanics series. I think it was from the 70s. That was interesting. $2 each, which is reasonable. And then this Peanuts book, Sandlot Peanuts, for $2, which is not unreasonable. Charlie Brown and the gang. So that was kind of neat. In the back of the store, again, some more clothes, some shoes. They have Easter stuff. I was there around Easter time, so you'll see a lot of Easter things in the videos that are here. They VHS, movies, not huge selection, some electronics, a lot of routers, a lot of VCRs, some monitors and things. Nothing that gets you too excited. They did have these JBL, I think they were JBL or Hitachi, home theater in wall, but they were charging $50. There's the prices on the CDs and DVDs and 8-tracks and records and things like that. Like with any of these thrift stores, you got to get lucky. There were a couple of interesting things: Georgian Satellites, ABBA, Grease. I think there were some Doors, "Build Me Up, Buttercup," which is a great song. So those were decent, and the price wasn't crazy. I forget it was 50 cents or $1. A couple of Eagles, Lawrence Welk, Baby Elephant Walk. This Beach Boys one was fun, but no record in there, just a cover. Radio City, Strawberry Shortcake, and then Tom Sawyer. Unfortunately, not the Rush version, so I did pass on this one. Office supplies, home goods, lamps. Again, a moderate selection, but generally nicer things. Bunch of shoes. They did have some glass cases with things that are more collectible, a little bit more pricey. They had like a Smurfs glass in there. There's a second case over here where they had like a Ritz tin and premium crackers tin and things like that. 9 minutes away down Route 422 was the Salvation Army Family Store. And this is a relatively large store. They did have some glass cases, as you'll see here again in a second. Nothing super interesting, nothing super pricey. I think that's a quick bunny mug there. Some other things that you see here that are kind of put there because they're unique. Lots of clothes. I'd say like 85% of the store seems like it's clothes and shoes and that kind of stuff. A little bit of houseware in terms of like lamps. Very little in terms of the way of electronics. These are a couple of alarm clocks, obviously. Prices generally are pretty decent, not super expensive. A little bit more home goods, another all-in-one stereo thing. So you hear some prices on VHS tapes and cassettes. And again, a moderate selection, a lot of VHS, some tapes, books, toys, games, puzzles, relatively well organized. Here are more housewares and glasswares and things. Again, the shelves are not like jam-packed with things. So that's good and bad, right? Less selection, but at least you can see see what's on there. So there's stuff to look at. Another glass case with, I'm not even sure what this stuff was. What they did have, which was interesting, was this table. Somebody must have donated their puzzle collection. They were about, I think, $4 each, which is a bit tough if you're trying to flip them. But there was, Big Bird. There was, Pebbles and Bam Bam from the Flintstones. Some really old Play School Duck, and you see Snow White. You see Smurfs here. So they were cool. I just wish they were cheaper. Back to a couple of the toys. Again, this $15 for a bag of Legos. Theoretically, you can get $15 for a pound, but that's insane. Nobody's going to pay that, at least if they're in the right mind. 5 more minutes down the road from there is the Humane Society of Lebanon County thrift store, and this is unique. You're going to see there's something a little bit different here. When you first go in, it's kind of deceptively small. You see this first room, there's a couple of vintage books on the left, and you kind of look around and you're like, wow, it doesn't seem huge. There's some kind of newer stuff. It seems like they were selling some candles and things, but there's some vintage postcards, some glassware. There were these books and things like that, most of them newer, but you'll see that there was that World's Only Corn Palace from Mitchell, South Dakota. That was a little bit different and kind of interesting. They did have some stuff in glass cases. This was a model of the Golden Hind boat that they're selling for $18. But this is what's unique. They're selling dog biscuits and cat stuff. And then there's actual kitties, live kitties in here that you can choose to adopt. This guy was kind of sleeping, but this guy was kind of up and playing. So, I mean, that's a nice break. There was a decent amount of jewelry, DVDs organized into kind of drawers that you can kind of see. Again, a moderate selection of clothes. Some books, some greeting cards, which is a little bit different, some homeware stuff in there, bowls, whisks, things like that. There were some books here, decent selection. Then I got excited by the vintage room entrance, but then, geez, it was closed for restocking, so I don't know how good that is, but I'd be excited to go back. 2 for 25 cents VHS Bonanza. Kind of almost like a nice little reading room. There's like a little fireplace there. There's places for you to sit and look at these books and check them out, some magazines. Again, this is deceptively small because here you go down to the basement. And I always like basements, like dark and dank. You think you're going to get better deals. More of a hodgepodge. There's some lamps back there, some baskets. There's a whole section of toys back there that you'll see in a little bit. Some prices on albums and cassettes are reasonable. There was a CD-ROM player there. These IBM-compatible controllers, but they were super cheap. Like I was going to get them, but they were like super cheap feeling. They felt like they weighed 1 ounce. A couple of records here. You got to get lucky. That's a Harry Chapin's Greatest Hits, which might not be bad, but just terrible condition. Closer look at some of the toys and games. A decent selection. Again, almost all of it is kind of newer, commoner toys, and that's almost always what you find at thrift stores. But again, a fair amount of stuff there, so still had some thrifting to do, but I needed a break, so I stopped at Dee'as, kind of a play on quesadillas. I didn't get it at the time. It was about 2 o'clock, so it was kind of very quiet. I ended up getting the special, the Chipotle pork chimichanga with some rice and beans. They have a very full menu, and this is right in the town of Lebanon. This is what it looked like. It was good. The sauce was good. The meat was real. And then I had to stop for a sweet at Wertz Candies, which was like 2 stores down. Tiny little store. I think it's been there forever. Got some different candies, real good. I mean, definitely worth a stop when you need some energy. It was back to thrifting then at Griff's Thrifts, which is just 3 minutes down the road from the Humane Society thrift store. They have a little bit of electronics, again, VCRs, things of that sort. They got some clothes, some home goods, shoes, all that kind of stuff. Bunch of housewares, and again, it's kind of stacked in there, a little bit hodgepodge, loosely organized homewares, pots and pans and stuff like that. A bunch of games, some of them a little bit older. Toys and some of these newer. Again, a lot of stuff. It's packed up. There's a bunch of shelves, and from the ground to the almost not to the ceiling, but there's a lot of stuff. You look up, you look down, you see that weird monkey purses and things like that. So decent place with one of those things where you hope you'll kind of turn something over and find something interesting. 7 minutes further down the road is another Jubilee thrift store, but this also has a rebuild it. So it's kind of a combination. They had this Ross 10 speed, which was kind of sweet. The store's almost kind of divided in two. This front section here is more typical thrift store kind of things. Like, again, there's obviously clothes. There's a little bit of furniture there. But you'll see books, magazines. You'll see some of the prices that they have there. They had some old Life magazines there, which are a little bit fun to see. They had some VHS. They had some books. They had some records. They were really hard to look at the way that they were stacked in. Some glass cases with some jewelry. Some of this jewelry almost looked new, or certainly well presented. Kind of a relatively meager amount of office supplies and electronic stuff. I was looking, I don't even know why I bothered doing this, but it was a plastic bin of calendars. It's halfway through 2022 practically, and who wants to buy a calendar for that? But then I happened to see this thing. I'm like, holy smokes, it is Magnum PI himself, Tom Selleck, 1985. I do need that. So I actually bought it for 50 cents. I have it listed on eBay. One previously sold for $30. Probably in better condition than mine, so I probably won't get that. But it was just kind of a fun find in the middle of a bin of worthless stuff. This was a Mr. Peanut thing, which was, kind of crazy. They wanted $14 for it, which was outrageous. You can get cheaper on eBay, so that was a bit much. Housewares, bowls, clothes, the typical. Again, relatively well organized. Then this is the back section where they have more furniture, tables and things. They have this kind of easy chair for $50, pretty good condition. And then this is kind of the unusual stuff. You'll see some gardening supplies, some hoses. You'll see some cabinets, more gardening stuff there. Different tools. This is auto supplies with a bunch of like radios and CD players, which is you definitely don't see every day. A little bit of sporting goods, not a bunch, but again, toilets, right? You don't typically see that in a thrift store. And this sweet, sweet green toilet, which I wish I could have gotten, was there. You will also see things like, shelving units, full-blown sinks, tiles, again, stuff to kind of put your house together. So there's paints, probably one-offs and things that people didn't pick up after they had them mixed. Doorknobs. They had bulk nails, right, of all different shapes and sizes. So probably a cheaper way to get going on your house. There's lights and, I don't know, sconces. Are those sconces? Chandeliers. So kind of neat. And then my favorite place of all 8 that we saw, the first floor attic. Even when you're looking at the display window and they got, a Christmas tree with records on it, this, fan, Coke bottles, traffic control game, some weird cat thing. You get some sense of the type of store this is. This is not your everyday thrift store. Lots of kind of toys, games, gadgets, records. Basically no clothes, no jewelry. There's Masters of the Universe, some random chicken, some stereo thing, California Raisin. To me, real cool stuff like that gorilla. Who doesn't need that? Records. This is kind of by the front of the store, and these are some of the nicer records in better condition. So they're 5, 10, maybe more, depending on the record, but organized. Bunch of display cases. There's a marble clock that's really kind of cool. These kind of cases where you can see all sorts of things, spice cans and everything else. DVDs, CDs, some tapes, but again, it's the records that you're going to probably come here for. This looked to be like a thing of high school yearbooks, which it's got to be a tough sell. Some games, toys. He must have got lucky here. These are Gundam by Bandai. These are model kits of like these kind of futuristic robot guys, and I think he was selling them for like $30-$35 each. And I know those are relatively expensive, and he will work with you on price. The guy was super nice. Talked to him a little bit, and very, very nice guy. This, of all the places I would come back here in a flash. Cool kind of racetrack set that he had, some older baseball stuffing, and most of this is definitely vintage, right? There's not much current stuff. These records, if you saw the sign, are 10 for $33, so basically $3.33 each. And again, not just a bunch of Barry Manilow and, Barbra Streisand. Like, there's stuff that you actually would want, and there's lots of them, right? There's bins of them. And you're going to see there's more on the later. So here's another room with some larger items. Again, so here's about the extent of the clothes. You're going to see here a post office uniform in sweet yellow. I almost wish I had grabbed this. There's one that's sold, I think that was comparable for like $65. Trash can from the World Cup 1964. Again, some more music stuff, some CDs. And again, here's some more boxes and crates of records. And again, I got to say that these are not like where you're just horrified by having to go through 900 records and only finding one that's usual, right? There's Steppenwolf, there's Paul McCartney, Charlie Rich. So good, generally good records. A little bit of comics, not a ton. And I wish I had shot more video because I stopped, unfortunately, and could have seen a lot more. It was a great store. And then another 5 minutes down 422 from there is the Blue Mountain Thrift Store. A pretty good sized store, kind of a warehousey, big open store. They have the usual mix of things that you would see. They do have some stuff behind the counter that's interesting to look at, so make sure you check that out, some more vintage kind of stuff. They got a big shelf of huge stuffed animals. I don't know if you want one, if you can get it. The usual stuff. A lot of the times the stuff is discounted, so make sure you look for those kinds of stickers. Section of books. They do have some DVDs. You can see some of the prices there. They're not super cheap. The 45s are $1, which isn't bad, but the LPs are like, I think, $3.50 each. And you saw the Monkeys, but it was in horrible condition. But that's a lot. I mean, that's, again, for the type of records there were, that's a lot. There's not too many there's really none that I would have paid $350 for. Home goods stuff, like this is kind of a neat antique jewelry thing, but it was $15. So, you know, again, if you want it, great, but it's hard to buy that and flip it. Foosball table for 100, which again seemed relatively steep. Don't know if there's a discount on that. There are a decent amount of furniture, as you can see, sofas, chairs, tables, and things like that. Some of it more vintagey, some of it more recent kind of things. So that's a kind of a nice selection of furniture. There is a decent amount of toys, you know, a bunch of totes full of stuffed animals those are pretty reasonable prices. And then there's this whole selection of games. It seems like they got 20 CNETs and things like that, so nothing super exciting, and then the typical selection of clothes. And then I was finally on to my 8th and last stop, a Goodwill, 4 minutes further down the road. And this is kind of a moderate-sized Goodwill. You can see the typical layout here with all sorts of, you know, clothes as usual. They had Christmas stuff out. Again, remember this was Easter time. This was April, so I don't know. So it kind of tells you that maybe the store's not quite as organized. You still can find treasures there, so it's definitely worth a stop. They have these kind of neat Wizard of Oz glasses, right? Ruby red slippers, a tornado, $5 each. I have no idea if they were worth it. I don't really do that kind of stuff. They did have pretty good shelves of toys and games. Kind of a funny Bugs Bunny puzzle. This was the day to find puzzles, I guess. Mostly new, as you would typically expect. Yeah, but you never know if you're going to find something fun or interesting. Speaking of interesting, I did find this Rolly kit, which is a way to kind of carry and store a bunch of like small little things, whatever it might be. It was $4. And again, so there's all these little compartments and this thing rolls out. And so you can store a bunch of stuff in there. When you close it up, it should stay in place because again, like the back end of one compartment keeps the other stuff in place. So that's kind of neat. The typical stuff, you know, color coordinated. This was a, you know, one of those drum things, for $20, and it was for PlayStation. A little bit of electronics, kind of a cool looking adding machine with the colors. I like that. We had this compartment full of old computer stuff, some cables and things like that. That was kind of weird. Must have gone along with this virtual pilot, this big old clunky thing for some of those old flight simulator games. That was kind of neat. And then, as you might expect, of course, a huge amount of clothes. So that's it. 8 thrift stores in 36 minutes and 17.2 miles. Again, it's going to take you longer because I'm assuming you're going to stop and do some thrifting. That's the whole point. Again, look in the description below. I have all of the addresses and websites for each of the different thrift stores. Be aware that I have some other guides to thrifting for Berks County, Ephrata, Lancaster, Harrisburg. I'll probably be adding some more, so keep watching. If you have suggestions for other areas, send them my way. And this was a great run of thrifting. Again, it's great to stay on the same road and see 8 different places. My favorite was the first floor attic, and I can't recommend it high enough. Again, it's the type of thrifting I like: vintage toys, games, electronics, records, and things like that. So if you're not into that, I'm sure one of the other places will fit your needs. I would go to all of these again. Wouldn't hesitate to stop at every single one of them. You never know what you're going to find. So good luck thrifting. Thanks for watching, and I appreciate any comments, and consider subscribing.